Kyiv, Ukraine. CNN. Taras Ratushnyy remembers receiving a phone call from his son Roman during Ukraine's deadly Maidan Revolution in 2013. "Don't worry and have a good night," Roman said over the phone, just as Taras heard the same voice on his television as his 16-year-old son announced plans for protesters to storm a building. The protests, which spread across Ukraine and symbolize the existential conflict between Europe and Russia, have mobilized a generation of young people determined to shape the country's future. Chief among them was Roman. In some ways, his political convictions began long before the Maidan. Both of his parents were previously activists and journalists. His mother, Svitlana Povalyaeva, herself a writer and poet, participated in the Square Revolution with her two sons. But the path became clear as Roma came of age amid Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea and violence between Ukrainian forces and pro-Russian separatists in the eastern regions. A young Roman Ratushnyy, who joined the Square Revolution when he was only 16 years old. By 2022, he has become a well-known environmental and anti-corruption activist with many supporters and fans. Then Russia invaded Ukraine. Roman, like his brother and father, immediately enlisted in the army. 9 years after Maidan Revolution lit spark, he was again on front lines fighting for his country's future and democratic hopes shared by many of his generation. But he knew he wouldn't survive this fight. By May of that year, Ukraine was losing up to 100 soldiers a day, according to President Volodymyr Zelensky. That month, Roman, who had a plan for everything he did, Taras said, wrote his last will and testament, using both sides. On a single A4 sheet of paper, he listed his wishes for his funeral, such as a ceremony, music, and a Kazakh cross monument. He quoted one of his mother's poems like parents and grandparents. He devoted his love to the city of birth Kiev. "I far from you, but I for you." 2 weeks later, on June 8, 2022, Roman was killed in action near Izium in eastern Ukraine's Kharkiv Oblast. "My son is a real hero of Ukraine," Taras told CNN during a recent visit to the oak-covered cemetery in Kiev where Roman is buried. It was 10th anniversary of the Maidan protests. Taras had only 1 day at home before returning to battlefield. "He used to be a hero every day." Taras Ratushnyy visits the grave of his son Roman at a cemetery in Kiev, Ukraine. In November 2023, the Maidan protests were sparked by Ukraine's then-President Viktor Yanukovych abruptly cancelling the trade agreement with the European Union. Supporters of the agreement hoped it would bring Ukraine closer to the West, generate economic growth and open borders to trade. Instead, Yanukovych, a pro-Russian leader, turned to Moscow, struck new deals with Vladimir Putin, and dashed the opposition's hopes for stronger relations with Europe. Thousands of angry demonstrators occupied Kyiv's square, or Independence Squar,